Hey guys, it's Tony Thompson. Welcome back to another episode of Chasing Excellence. Hi, welcome back, guys, to another episode of Chasing Excellence. I'm Tony Thompson, your host for today. I'm excited to have with me Shawn Smith, who's the broker owner of Sublime Financial in Dallas, Texas. Shout out to the big D in Dallas. Shawn, we'll find out later if you're a Cowboy fan or not, but I mean, if you live in Dallas, you got to be a Cowboy fan, but we'll see. Shawn, first of all, welcome to Chasing Excellence.
Thank you, Tony. It's a pleasure to be here.
Great. Well, first of all, let's just go ahead and get that question out the way. I'm sure everyone wants to know, living in Dallas, are you a Dallas Cowboy fan?
Is there any other way to be? Of course I'm a Dallas Cowboy fan.
Absolutely. You know what, Shawn? I really love you. Here's a little known history fact. I, too, am a Dallas Cowboy fan. Back in the day when I was growing up, my dad brought me these little football games, little midgets, Tony Dorsett, Roger Staubach back in the day. You would just set them on a little board and kind of electromagnetic. Most people probably don't even know what I'm talking about.
I know exactly what you're talking
They're
about.
electromagnetic, man. And them Dallas Cowboys and the Pittsburgh Steelers, man. It was just awesome. And that's basically how I became a Cowboys fan.
Yeah, I had the same set, the vibrating board. Yeah. Yeah, it's cool stuff.
Love it. Well, Shawn, first of all, for those who may not know about you and Sublime Financial, you've been in the business a moment. We're going to let you tell your story, but you currently are the broker owner, as I stated earlier, since 2013 when you started Sublime Financial. You yourself do, somewhere around 30 million or so consistently each and every year. And then your shop does about 200 million. So first and foremost, man, congratulations and kudos on where you are, where you come from, and where you're looking to go in the future.
Thank you very much.
Great. So let's talk about Sublime Financial. How'd you get the name?
I didn't want to sound like everybody else.
Okay.
So I came across that name and it means higher moral learning or relaxing experience. And I thought if you apply that to a mortgage transaction, you want to educate the borrower, and you want them to have a relaxing experience that they enjoy as much as they possibly can, so they come back to you.
Love it.
That was the genesis of the name.
Okay. So relaxing experience, and absolutely, in our industry, sometimes it's not as so relaxing. So I definitely follow that concept. Now, earlier we were chopping it up before we came on the conversation. We were talking about just our journeys in the industry. I like to say that everyone has a story of how they got into the mortgage industry. Shawn, what's your story?
So when I graduated from college, I got into the health club business, and I was running a chain of health clubs, and we got bought out by somebody else, and I suddenly was unemployed after 10 years in the business, and decided I didn't want to be in that business anymore. Had a friend in the mortgage business, became an originator, worked for somebody else for a number of years, started my own company. We had the crash in 2008, got out of the business, swore I'd never get back in the business, and then somehow I ended up back in the business, and here we are.
Wow. Love that journey. Amazing story. I always like to just kind of learn, either how someone intentionally or unintentionally fell into this industry as well. When you talk about our industry and think about our industry, Shawn, what do you see right now as the greatest challenge or one of the greatest challenges in our industry?
I think that the greatest challenge right now is obviously the market's been tight for a couple of years. So you're seeing a lot of people exiting the business, which for those of us that are still in the business is a positive thing. But I think there's some margin compression because of the competitive nature of the business and less clients out there. So I think the greatest challenge going forward is going to be in the short term rates. We need better rates to grow the business the way we've grew it in the past. And I see AI as being both a challenge and a positive. I think if you learn to master AI, I think you can use it to grow your business. I think if you ignore AI, I think that you could be out of business. So I guess I'll summarize that in saying I think technology is probably our greatest challenge in the next few years in this business.
Absolutely. Okay. Great perspective there. When you think about, you mentioned earlier being in this business, we got rising interest rate environment right now, margin compression. Although some LOs may be exiting or deciding to leave the industry, there's still this war for the holy grail, which is the client, right? Um,
Exactly.
doing 30 million a year, running a broker shop, you're balancing a lot of balls in the air, man. And I love and have much respect for individuals like yourself. That's what chasing excellence is all about. Is telling that story of how you go from good to better and better to best. And so, how do you stay motivated? Like, what do you do to stay focused?
Uh, I get up every day and I go to work. I mean, I'm very, very regimented in my schedule. And, I've got a lot of goals I still want to accomplish. I've got 3 children. I've got a wife, and I have colleges to pay for. I want to retire at some point in time. I want to make the business more profitable. So at some point in time, maybe I sell the business. I'm an entrepreneur. I've got several other businesses outside of here, so I juggle those as well. So I'm kind of a serial entrepreneur, and I just like to. I get my thrill out of growing the business as much as doing the business.
Great. No, I love that. Love that. What would you say for that guy or girl who's out there and they've been at it for a moment and they're trying to get to that next level, Sean, but they're not quite there. They don't understand, they're trying to break through that door. What one piece of advice would you share with them today?
I would treat every client, regardless of the loan size, with the same amount of importance. So somebody that's a $70,000 loan that you're making no money on might turn into 5 loans because nobody else will help them and you help them, and they'll refer 5 friends to you. So always treat everybody with respect and every loan with importance. And then the other thing is become an expert in the business.
Mm,
Anything that you can read, anything that you can study that's going to set you apart from somebody else so that you're knowledgeable. And along those same veins, if you don't know something and the client asks you, don't be scared to say, I'm really not sure what the answer is on that, but I'll get right back with you.
yeah, yeah.
Because a lot of loan officers, that's where they stumble, is they want to always be right and they want to always know everything. And the second you say something that's not credible, then you lose all credibility.
Sean, you mentioned two nuggets. Whenever I share with the team and the audience opportunities that they need to go deeper in and think about, I call them nuggets. There are two nuggets that you stated that I absolutely agree with you that I've seen over the course of my career. And as I've talked to thousands of originators and owners and brokers in our industry, the first is understand, and it's important that if you're going to be in business a year from now, 3 years from now, 5 years from now, or even 10 years from now or longer, you must embrace a customer for life philosophy. And you mentioned something treating that $70,000 client just like you would a 700,000 is absolutely right. I oftentimes tell my story. I bought my first home in college. It was a $35,000 FHA loan in Columbia, South Carolina. But guess what? Along the way, I've owned 8 other homes, have 2 sons, and they've owned residential first properties as well as second investment properties. So you never know where that first transaction is going to come from, and understanding how to have that customer for life philosophy. If you want to live and build a business that's based on referrals is credible and important. The second thing that you mentioned, which is also a big nugget that I think a lot of originators really fail at miserably, constantly improving their knowledge of the business. A lot of times when I talk to originators, oh, Tony, I've been in the business 20 years, man. Well, if you've been in the business 20 years, why aren't you originating at the top of your class? If you've been in the business 5 years, why are you still doing the same volume that you did or less 5 years ago, not counting the great refinance boom? Because guess what? We all were superheroes back in those days. So you don't impress me by telling me how much you did when everybody else was on the same playing field and they was in the same stratosphere. The question is, can you do it now? And so constantly investing in yourself and investing in learning the business is paramount. And that's something I really try to focus and stretch on every day when I'm talking to originators and leaders across the country. So I love that, man.
Thank you.
Moving on, what would you say? We talked earlier about a challenge in the business. What would you say is probably an opportunity from your purview in terms of where you said, Tony, I'm really excited about this right now in our industry?
Well, specifically in my market, which is the Dallas market, we still have very positive population growth.
Yeah.
So I'm really excited about the opportunity of being a business owner and an originator in the Dallas market specifically. Um, the escalation of property value here just simply from the population growth. Other markets have stepped back. We may have flattened out, but as rates fall, we will get some increased property value again. So as an originator, you get a raise every year in Dallas doing the same volume just because the loan amounts go up.
Yeah.
And so I think if use AI, use some of this technology to capture these people as they come into Dallas and be their preferred choice of a lender, I think there's really an opportunity to excel there.
Great, great. Shawn, first of all, man, I've really, really enjoyed kind of getting to know you, talking a little bit about, your background, your journey. And I do also agree. You're in one of the best markets in the country. And I always like to say, every market is one of the best markets in the country if you know how to really go out and attack that market by understanding how to use data. I always give my analogy of the Wayne Gretzky, great hockey player, one of the greats. I still believe he is the greatest in my book. Um, when asked, Wayne, what do you contribute to your success as you look back over your career? Wayne, you know, very subtly always said, I skated to where the puck was headed and not to where the puck is headed. So, for those out there in the audience, don't focus on today. Focus on tomorrow and understanding where your market is and how you can differentiate yourself and create a brand, create a niche where it's not about who you know, it's about who knows you so that ultimately your phone will constantly ring. Shawn, I never like to end our podcast without being grateful and thankful. What are you most grateful for today, Shawn?
I'm thankful to live in a country where a person like myself can start a business and grow that business and be as prosperous as I want to be. Only in the United States, only we set limits on where we can go,
Yeah.
and I've got some pretty high expectations for myself, and hopefully I can elevate the people around me to help achieve that for all of us. So I'm just thankful to be a business owner in the United States. It's probably the most thankful, besides my family. That's the thing that I'm the most thankful for.
Sometimes the things that are the biggest and best things in life, the pursuit of liberty, the pursuit of happiness, just pursuit of being free, we take for granted. And so, Shawn, I echo that sentiment. I second that as well. And look here, man, I want to again thank you for your time, sharing your journey, your story. I'm looking forward to having you back here in the future, helping us to understand what's going on in the big D markets in Dallas, but also just how Sublime Financial is continuing to grow, put more people in homes, and at the end of the day, help our industry become better. So thank you for joining me today, Shawn, and definitely appreciate our conversation that we've had today.
Thank you, Tony. I enjoyed. Thank you for having me on here, and I appreciate the opportunity and look forward to talking to you again soon.
Well, guys, I want to thank you for joining me. I'm Tony Thompson, your host for Chasing Excellence podcast, and I look forward to seeing you on another episode of Chasing Excellence. Take care. Whatever is necessary.